I have a sales call with you and you are excited about my product. You are ready to buy. And then I call you and you don't respond. I email and you don't respond. And the reason you don't is because here's what happened. As soon as we finished our conversation, you went back in and your largest customer just had a major crisis. Your best employee got an unbelievable offer from another company and your mother fell and broke her hip. Now, all of a sudden, buying from me is not your top priority. When prospects do not respond, what they are saying to you is not that they don't want to buy. They're saying, you have not shown me enough value for this to make the top 5 of my to-do every day. So follow-up is not about pinging people until they get the sale. It's about nurturing, adding value, and helping a customer make you a priority.
Welcome to the Modern Selling Podcast, where we help the entire sales community to create more sales conversations with today's modern buyer. This includes anyone from entrepreneurs and business owners to sales reps and sales leaders. Each episode, you will hear from sales leaders, practitioners, and influencers to help you find, engage, connect, and nurture your relationships with your buyers. I'm Mario Martinez Jr., your host, and you're now listening to the Modern Selling Podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Modern Selling Podcast. I could not be more excited to have my friend and guest. You're going to get a lot out of her. You probably have seen her on stage, podcast, webinars, and I'm excited to introduce to you Meridith Elliott Powell. Welcome to the show, my friend.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here. I am as excited as you are. I love the energy.
I love it. Well, for those of you that don't know Meridith, I don't know how you couldn't know her, but I did mention she's a speaker, she's an author, and if I'm not mistaken, didn't you just release a book and you're about to release another one?
Yep, that's right. I just released one last year on sales, and I've got one coming out in about a month on succession planning.
I love that. And there's a future one coming as well, right?
Yeah, and the one that's coming out in the fall is the one that's really very close to my heart. And that one is, how do you turn all this uncertainty in the marketplace into your competitive advantage?
Very good. That's exciting to hear that. For those of you that are listening in, man, I'm excited because Meridith has been all over the place in terms of motivational speaking, talking to sales teams, sales leaders, business owners as well. And you primarily will find her on the stage. And you know, I'm disappointed about something, Meridith.
What's that?
We haven't shared the stage together.
Yeah, I'm a little surprised that has not happened. Let's make that a goal for 2020.
We'll figure out a way to make that one happen. So do me a favor. Tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, how'd you get here? Tell us a little bit about that.
I can imagine, probably like you and most people you have on the show, anybody who has a speaking background, we certainly didn't set our sights on becoming professional speakers. So my background is all in healthcare and in financial services. I started my career building referral networks for physicians, all in the areas of helping healthcare learn to sell, which I am old enough that was kind of a no-no back then. It was really cutting edge, the type of work that I was doing. And from there, I was recruited into the financial services industry and helping that industry learn to move into more of a sales culture. And at the ripe old age of 40, I decided I would hang it all up and go out on my own as a business strategist. Had a lot of luck, wrote a couple of books, and the rest is history. I hit the stage after that.
I love that. So clearly you've been around in sales for a long time.
A long time.
And you're absolutely right. When I think about my path, I didn't say 4 years ago, which was actually 4 years ago to date, as a matter of fact, January 26th. 4 years ago in 1 month. January 2016, it was January 5th when I published that article, Dad, you said LinkedIn would make you money. And I had no idea that I would get 2 phone calls in a 9-day period that would launch my first company that was later merged underneath Vengreso. And later on, now speaking out on the circuit and launching a training company, I had no plan, no clue, no idea that would happen. So it's funny how things happen like that, yeah?
Yeah, I think it's one of the greatest things about being in business for yourself and being in business today is you never know what the next opportunity is going to be. But the one thing I can guarantee you is as great as our businesses are right now, I'm excited about what's going to be in the next 5 to 10 years.
Yeah, makes sense. It's funny. I will say this, and I think the book that you're about to publish is on succession planning, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So let me tell you a little bit about my theory on succession planning. That is, if you rewound from 4 years ago when I launched my company, if you went backwards 10 years earlier, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, up to 2016, I always prepared a annual business plan. In that annual business plan, I had a career trajectory, and there were always documented two paths. It was my plan A and my plan B. My plan A said I was going to be a CRO of an organization and oversee sales and marketing and go that route. My plan B said keynote speaker.
Wow.
And I had no idea that it would actually come true. And now here I am today. I'm both. Right? I'm not the CRO of the company, but that having been said, I actually have marketing and I have a sales underneath me for Vengreso and I do speaking. So it's crazy to think about like the whole thought process of I want to be something when I grow up. I want to do something. I've got that plan. I document that plan. And as things start happening, you take a direction, left or right. And in January 2016, I said, whoa, wait a minute. This was in my documented plan for the last 10 years. I got to run after this. Like I said to myself, go do this, right? If this happened, and here we are.
I really hope that everybody's listening to this podcast that has written down a business plan or has done a vision board or something. Take a moment and go back and look at it. And I think you're going to be surprised about how much of what you documented has come true. Because that may be surprising to you, but it is really not surprising to me. The power of writing down an intention. But I love what you did is you've gone back and looked at it. About a year ago, my husband decided to do a vision board and I hadn't looked at I've had my vision board up, but I didn't really look at it or anything. And I pulled my vision board back out. And when I looked at it, I couldn't believe in all the areas of my life that pretty much I had almost accomplished everything on my vision board, simply because we took the time to put it down. I live in Asheville, North Carolina. That's kind of the woo-woo capital of the world. That may sound a little out there, but a business sense, it is so key to do that. So I think it'd be a great takeaway for everybody. If you ever wrote anything down, go back and look at it because I bet you are on track to do it. If you haven't, it's a great thing to go do right now because just setting that intention is going to start opening the doors of opportunity.
Yeah, that's interesting. You said that. Be intentional about what your goals are, right? Yeah. So funny, in all my leadership roles, every year, everybody on my team, down to the rep level, all had to document their vision board. Everybody. And everybody would have to sit through what those vision boards were. And as a leader, what you're looking for is, all right, what do you want to be when you grow up? And in this case, individuals would identify, I want to have this. I want to have my own company. I don't know if you know this or not, but we're right in the middle of getting ready to do this massive hiring campaign and building on our sales team for Vengreso. Okay. So one of the questions I'm asking people is, what do you want to do? What do you want to be when you grow up? And there's a lot of folks that we're talking to saying like, I want to have my own business. And what I'm saying is fantastic. Like when I hear that, and I say, give me 1 to 2 years of investment of your time, just two, give me minimum 2. And I will help you personally start that company. I will help you get there. I will give you those tools. If you present that to your leadership team, I believe that if you're a smart leader, you're going to hear that and you're going to use that as the seed of motivation to get them to do better, to push harder, to do more in an organization. What do you think? Do you agree with that?
Oh, I completely agree about it. When I wrote my succession planning book, which called Who Comes Next? Leadership Succession Made Easy. And I wrote it with a partner and a colleague of mine by the name of Dr. Mary Kelly. And one of the things that we write about in the book, what I love about what you're talking about is number one, you weren't set in your mind that you were going to keep people forever. I mean, you got to understand that people have dreams and they may move on. But the goal with talent today is to get everything you can get out of it while they're willing to work for you. And what you did with that was you validated their dreams. And because you validated their dreams and invested in them, they're going to turn around and invest in you tenfold. That's spot on. We've got to shift as leaders, as business owners, as CEOs, we've got to shift our mindset to how we think about employees, engagement, and what long-term success looks like with them.
Yeah, absolutely. I love what you just said. And the funny part is we started into really this podcast and we didn't even get into my special question, which is tell us something nobody would know about you, even if they looked at your social profile. Like we just automatically started getting into it. But now that we're here, tell us something nobody would know about you, even if they looked at your social profile.
Well, one of the favorite things that I like to tell people, and I share this from the stage, but it is not on my social profile and you will not find it in my bio or documented anywhere else. But the very first time that I had to sell, the thought of selling made me so physically ill that I walked into my boss's office and got sick at my stomach. I was scared to death. And I like to tell that story, and people would not know that about me because I am a freaking sales machine right now. I would rather sell than do anything. In fact, sometimes I don't even want to deliver the work because all I get is the high of landing the deal. So if I can learn to sell, any human being on this planet can learn to sell.
Okay, now when you say you got sick to your stomach, did you barf all over his desk?
Actually, he was very hip. It was back when I was working for physicians. He had both a bathroom in his office and a telephone that hung on the wall, which back in my day would have been a very cool thing. So I used his bathroom. I got sick at my stomach. I barfed, baby, big time.
I love it. I love it. Well, we started in already on some great insights. And, what we started talking about was really around the succession planning concept and what leaders can do to be able to get more out of people. And it's funny because what you just said is when you understand what they want to do and you set the expectation is that I know you're not going to be here forever. But if you commit to this, I'll commit to that, right? Now you work on a partnership strategy. And now you understand their motivation and they understand your motivation. As an example for sellers, I'm bringing you on board to deliver revenue. That's what I'm bringing you on for. And I will also take the time to train you up to be whatever it is that you want to be and wherever it is you want to go. I literally just said this in 2 interviews that I had today as part of the final process. And I said to these 2 individuals, if you give me 2 years and you want to accomplish this and whatever the goal was, one wanted to go into sales management and the other one wanted to be able to have his own business, right? If you give me 2 years minimum, I will help train you and get you there. And wherever you need to go, if I can help you get there, if you want me to make a phone call to another VP of sales to help you get that new job, I will make that phone call for you. And it's almost unbelievable that I would do that. And I actually proved it with telling them a story about one of my reps named Matt and how Matt truly wanted to go work for a software company. And in this case, he targeted Salesforce.com. I told him, I said, give me 2 years. He walked in about 1 year and 3 months and said, hey, boss, can I talk to you for a second? I said, sure. And he goes, you remember you told me that you'd help me get to where I wanted to go? And I said, yeah. He goes, well, Salesforce called me and I'm in round number 5 of interviews. And I was like, wow, that's fantastic. And he goes, God, I was hoping you would say that because I was really nervous about telling you. I'm like, why? He said, because, it's not the 2-year time frame yet, but it's all kind of happened without me knowing. It doesn't matter. It's great. It's what you want to do, right? I think so. Well, let's talk about it. Like, is this really what you want to do? So we spent some time talking about it. At the end, I said, what do you want me to do? He said, I think you know so-and-so. And I said, I do. Would you put in a good word for me? I said, let me make a phone call right now. And I did. And he ended up getting the job. And he left me. And that's the type of individual that I want to work for is that, but by the way, in that 1.5 years that he was with me, he was like 2,000,000% dedicated to me and like working night and day to be able to make stuff happen and just followed the mantra of everything we were doing. And I got out of it what I wanted out of it. And he got out of it what he wanted out of it.
Couple of things I want to comment on. Number one is the very fact that he's gone on and he's gone to work to do what he wants to do. Chances are with the kind of relationship he's got with you, I'd be surprised if one day you two don't end up working together again. So we have to shift our mindset to how we think about it as well. But I have a story kind of along the same lines where I went to work for my boss in financial services and all I wanted to give was 2 years. He knew I wanted to go into business for myself. But he reinvented my job every couple of years, speaking to the skills that I wanted to learn and the things that I needed to build my resume. I ended up staying for 8. And I think a lot of times when we tell our employees, I want to help you achieve what you want to achieve, and we're willing to redesign their job descriptions to benefit them, but quite frankly, it benefits us in the long run, they're going to end
Absolutely.
up staying with us longer than they expected to, and we're going to get far more out of them because you made such a great point. He was worth more in that year and a half than some 10-year employees have been.
100%. Absolutely. And it's funny you said we'll probably work together again. So I was speaking at Dreamforce this last year, 2019, and I was standing on the street on a phone call. And of course, he works at Salesforce, and he was walking down Market Street in San Francisco, and he saw me and I saw him, and I was like, I'll call you back. And we stood there and talked for almost like an hour, I think it was, maybe 45 minutes to an hour. And he was asking, he's like, I'm so glad I caught you because I wanted to call you and talk to you about, and now he's looking at taking on a management role, right? So fast forward now, that was 5 months ago. And here I am, we're building out a team. And as we continue to build this team out, I'm forecasting, I'm going to need a sales leader. And I made my list of people that I would want to ping. And guess who was the first person on that list?
Yeah.
So to your point, it was Matt, right? And I'm thinking like, I want to call Matt up because he'd be the perfect sales leader that I could bring on board. And you're right. I think a lot of leaders, though, if hopefully leaders are listening in to what Meridith and I are talking about, the key here is those vision boards. Like, do you know what is the seed of motivation? And it's not just my vision board. When I did my vision boards, it was also, what's my motivation for my wife, my kids? What do they want to do, right? My wife, she wants to travel. She wants to be outside of the United States. So, okay, how are we going to make that happen? Well, we launched a 100% virtual company. What does that mean? Well, now I get to go work from anywhere that I want in the world as long as I'm working back when my clients are working. Great. We're ready to go. And in fact, this year, we start that process for us internally. That's not my why. Like, I could care less. I could stay in the United States, San Francisco all day long, right? But this is what she wants. That's her why. That's her vision. And now that impacts me. And I think if leaders understand that, they will be able to have a more successful relationships, but also a more successful sales team.
I'm old enough that I grew up in a world where business was business and personal was personal. And boy, what a wrong way to raise a group of employees, because it isn't. If you want me to stay with you long term, and if I want to be happy in my life, the worst thing I can do is build a business plan and not integrate my personal life, my family, those people that I love, and have a vision of the life I want, not just the business that I want. And I think that's important for us as leaders to do that for ourselves, but also to help our employees think about that too.
Yeah, I love what you just said. That's fabulous insight and advice, is that you can't separate the two. And I know, like sometimes these rules for interviewing. Do you have children? You're not supposed to ask. Are you married? You're not supposed to ask, right? Like so stupid, some of these rules and laws. But inevitably, I'll be the first person to share. And how I get that information to understand, like, who are you? Who am I hiring? Is I will be like, oh yeah, my kids, whatever it might be. I've got 2 boys, and one's 9, one's 6. They're like, oh wait, I've got a daughter. I've got this, and now I can actually bring that out of somebody instead of asking some of those direct questions that you're illegally not supposed to ask anymore in some states, especially. But it's very important that we really bring together, like, who is this person, and they need to understand who I am, but more importantly, I need to understand the personal side of who you are. I'm hiring not just a bot. I'm hiring a person. Like, tell me who you are, people.
Well, I think the thing that you're really driving at is the whole idea of values, right? I mean, I think when we're doing an interview to hire somebody, skill set is irrelevant, because what you're hiring them to do today, it's not going to be what they're doing tomorrow anyway. You know that you are hiring people. You're going to have to train them to do something or invest in the training. So you're really looking for a value set. And what I love about values is that it really is an interview. It's like you're interviewing, and is this a right fit? And you don't want to hire somebody who's a wrong fit with a great resume, because they're never going to be successful in your organization. Because what makes your company jive, what makes it successful? Did I really just say jive?
You did. I like it. We go old school jive, girl.
Oh, God. Anyway, what really makes it work and what really makes it tick are the values of your company. What's most important to you? And I think that's what employees are looking for in us. And I think it's what we need to be looking for in employees. In fact, I just had a client last week who's gone through 3 really bad hires. And what it comes down to is they're looking at resume. And resume does not tell you enough.
Yeah, very good point. Very good point. I want to move to a slightly similar subject. And we talked about how things have changed today when especially we're recruiting and how we should be different as leaders if we want to retain talent. But I want to talk about sales overall and how sales has changed today. And I think this topic is near and dear to my heart, as you know, about the whole modern seller, modern buyer scenario. But I'd love for you to spend some time talking about how you think sales has changed.
Well, one thing I do want to say is I want to make sure that anybody listening, most of you are in sales, that whole conversation about succession planning, that was for you too. Because one of the biggest pieces that is important today is your top salespeople, you better have succession plan in place for them. You better have somebody who's connected to their customers, connected to their clients, because salespeople today, even if they love your company, they are going to move on. And you want to make sure that you're constantly thinking about that. So with that said, because I want to make sure that they know they're included in that conversation, there's so much that I think has changed with sales today. But I want to start with what I think is the beginning and probably one of the first paradigm shift sales professionals need to have. And that is that I read a statistic the other day that Gartner had put out, and it said something like, this may not be exactly right, but I'm pretty close, is that your prospect is about 54% of the way through the buying cycle before they interact with a salesperson. So what that means to any salesperson listening right now is that since you got on this podcast, since we started talking, your best prospects have already started the sales cycle, and they started it without you. They're Googling for information. They're talking to their friends. They're reading industry magazines. And if your name isn't coming up, if you're not who they're hearing about all over the place, then by the time you make the traditional sales call, you're 54% behind your competitors.
Valid point. Yeah, that's very true. Through the information age that we're in right now, so much is available. And that was part of the CEB, now Gartner study. They showcased the breakdown, if you would, of where every section is spent at. And there was a percentage, about 20 some odd percent, that was spent in the online research. And then another 20 some odd percent that was spent with the buying committee, reviewing their findings, and then another almost 20% or so that was spent around the offline research. So asking Johnny or Susie or Mary, who did you use? What did you do? But what was more interesting about that study as well from the Gartner and CEB was they showcased that only 17% of the entire buying cycle, as reported by buyers, is spent with the sales team. And if you think about the idea of, how many competitors might you have in any one deal? Probably 2, right? So it's you and 2 others. Of that 17%, you're really only getting about 6% of the time, right? Of the slice of the pie. That means that with that change, we'd be thinking differently. The question is how do we think differently as a result of that type of change that's happening?
Yeah, the biggest thing that I think we need to do is that we need to inject ourselves into that part of the buying cycle that doesn't directly involve us. And what I mean by that is we've got to be working on our buzzworthiness, by our influence in the marketplace, by building our personal brand. So when those 3 parts of the sales process you mentioned, the online, the committee, and the verifying with our colleagues and our peers, that our name is being seen, that our business is coming up. I use a great example when I speak from the stage about my investment advisor. I've got an investment advisor that I love. People ask me all the time if they can have a second look at my investments, and I say absolutely not. And the reason is because I think John's amazing. I think he's the best out there. And the reason I do is because I know that he has finished top 5 in his company 5 years in a row. I know that he works for the most safe and sound financial institution in the country. And when I talk to my friends and my colleagues, his name comes up. Now, I don't know these things about John because I'm obsessed with my investment advisor. I know these things about John because he understands this step. When he wins top 5, he sends all his customers a thank you note saying, I won again. I could never do it without customers like you. When articles or awards are bestowed upon his company, he sends us copies of them and says, you'd like to know your money is safe with us. And John does that with all of his prospects and his customers customers, creating buzz about himself in the marketplace. And we as sales professionals, too often, we assume marketing is going to do that. And marketing can help us, but we've got to make ourselves influencers in the marketplace.
That's a really good one that I didn't even think about, which is with Vengreso, we've won many different awards in a very short period of time. And we put it out on social and everybody says, congratulations, that's awesome. But I never actually thought about taking our sales teams and saying, hey, send this out as a personal thank you to the customers. Like, that's really good because the company might do it, but we as an individual, how are we advertising that to leverage that with building trust between us and the customer? Great point.
Yeah, exactly. And the thing is that I have this theory that as human beings, we never really get past high school. It's our emotional maturity, right? And we want to be with who is popular and who is doing things. So you look at your company, you're growing, you're winning awards, you're doing all these types of things. And social is great, but how can you really take it to another level? And how can you make customers feel that they're a part of your community and they're a part of the things that are happening to you? Because when I feel like I'm a part of it, now I want to help you spread the word.
Well, I can tell you this much. My wife would agree with you that I never grew up beyond high school maturity. Just last night, she's like, why do you keep, what? Why? And I'm like, but I don't know. It's just the kid in me, babe. It's just the kid in me. She's like, you're a grown man. Grow up. Come on. And I'm like, I don't know. I just like doing that. So anyway, so that's as early as last night. So I don't know what the problem is, but you're right. I haven't grown up past high school maturity.
Well, truth is that with men, the emotional maturity is 3.
Oh.
Kidding. Just a joke. Just a joke. Having some fun.
Nobody disconnects. She's just playing.
Exactly. We're just having fun here. No political incorrectness.
Yeah, exactly. There you go. All right. So agree. What do I agree on? Agree that we should help to influence our buyers and we should be building our brand. You said online. I totally agree. We should create buzz around company accolades or even individual accolades, which is the example you gave with John, and what he does in terms of thanking his personal customers, right? For something that he won as an award, as an example. So yes. Got it. So is that the solution? Is that the only thing in terms of like the buyers change? So they're online. So we need to be online as well, or what, is there something more?
Oh, no. Gosh, there's so much more. I mean, if I had to say that one of the biggest places that I'm seeing sales professionals waste their time today, it is on chasing the wrong target. And while that's always been a problem and a challenge, we need to understand as sales professionals how Amazon and Zappos and companies like that got so big. And the way that they did it was they niched to expand. When Amazon started out, they weren't trying to sell to me. I was the person who thought that bookstores in our downtown would be there forever. And I thought buying books or shoes online was a stupid idea. So Amazon didn't waste their salespeople or their marketing dollars trying to get me to buy their product. Instead, they went after their ideal, knowing that if their ideal was happy, and it would be easy to make their ideal happy, their ideal would go out and sell everybody else. And we as sales professionals need to adopt that too. We've got to be willing to niche if we want to grow to all the different types of markets. And that's a heavy lift in a highly competitive market where we've got heavy goals. But if you're spending your time trying to attract business that is hard to close, or if you close it, it's going to be hard as heck to make those people happy, you're actually taking your sales cycle backwards.
So help me understand, willing to niche to grow. I love that. I might just steal that one.
Steal it.
Yeah. So define for me though, when you say niche as a salesperson, like when we usually come in, sales leaders that especially that are listening in, will define a territory, will define a segmentation, a vertical, whatever it might be. Help me understand, like even a business owner as well. What do you mean by niche? Like willing to niche? Like are we talking about target buyer? We're talking about target vertical?
The answer to that is yes. What I'm asking you to do is really to get clear and really go deep on who your ideal prospect is. And the best way to do that is to get really clear on your ideal customer, because the better you understand your customer, the better you'll choose your prospect. Here's a little exercise that I tell my clients to do. I want you to write down your top 10 customers. Your top 10 customers are people that just bring a smile to your face. If I told you were going to go out and have lunch with them, you'd be excited about it, and they'd be excited to see you. They love your products and services. They don't give you any qualms about your price, and they're the type of people that are in your corner. If you write those 10 people down, you'll start to see themes about them, and themes that go beyond industry and territory. They're things like they're in a certain age bracket. They hold a certain position in a company. They're family-oriented people, or they're weekend warriors. They're the type of people, like for me, when I look at my prospect list, when I work with sales teams, I'm always working with a sales team that is highly successful, coming off their best year ever, and wants to take it to another level. So you get as granular as you can get, but you do that by understanding your top customers.
That's a very good point. And looking at this particular niche, I think one of the challenges that we have is companies, especially on inbound leads, companies get these things and it's like, we have a bite on a hook. We have a bite on the hook, right? Like we got to reel it in. But even with that, is it the right ICP, right? Individual customer profile. Is it the right one? Do we deselect immediately from that particular contact or lead and say, thanks, but no thanks. We're not going to go down this path. Should we be doing those types of things as sales leaders?
Just earlier this week, I was actually working with an inbound sales team that sells technology, and we're going through this exact process. Because inbound leads, I think you have to get even more selective with inbound leads, because anybody out there who does inbound selling knows that some real junk can call you or email you as an inbound lead, right?
Yeah, right.
So I don't necessarily say to people to say absolutely no, we're not going to deal with you, but you've got to learn to grade where you're going to spend your time and your energy. And so once I ask people to really identify and get granular on what that ideal prospect looks like, you've got to be able to use that sales call or that interaction with that inbound lead to ask some questions to kind of clarify where they are. I'll just give you a really quick example. Just a real quick story is that my ideal client is a CEO or a C-suite professional who wants me to work with their high-performing sales team, who's looking to take that sales team to another level. And he or she is going to be highly engaged in the process, and their sales team wants the training and development. Those are kind of my clip points. And I was speaking in Atlanta, Georgia. I had about 60 CEOs in the room. I finished my presentation. One of the CEOs comes up and says, I want to hire you to work with my sales team. Ding, that is a great lead. I got a CEO wants me to work with a sales team. I immediately go into question mode. Tell me about your sales team. They're high performing. They want to go to another level. Are they interested in this? They're excited. They've been pushing me to it. I go through these questions. This guy is clicking everything I need. I am ready to sign on the dotted line. I ask him one last question. Why now? And he said, well, a couple of years ago, my wife came to me, pretty much told me I had to hire my brother-in-law. My brother-in-law is kind of dead weight. I had to figure out where to put him in the company. I put him over the sales team because he could do the less damage there. And the sales team's just now, 2 years later, just ready to kick the guy out. I said, absolutely great. No problem. What have you done about your brother-in-law? He said, I don't think you understand. He said, I've been happily married for 20 years. We are not touching my brother-in-law. And in that moment, I knew this guy was not my prospect. And I had 59 CEOs in another room drinking that I needed to go be talking to because there was a better prospect over there. So that's what I'm talking about. We go into a sales call desperate to get the sale rather than going into a sales call thinking, I'm going to figure out if you're lucky enough to be working with me. So it's switching that paradigm to really figure out, is this person a good fit? The reason I didn't want that guy's business is I can't make him happy. And I can't afford in today's marketplace anybody going out there and saying anything other than working with Meridith Elliott Powell was the best thing I ever did. So I need to put myself in front of a prospect I can be successful with.
That's a fabulous story. That's a really good, fabulous story. And the question that I love the most, and as soon as you said it, we just hired our new head of revenue enablement and sales operations. And I can't announce who it is yet because it hasn't gone out to the public market yet, but it is a big one for Vengreso. This is absolutely amazing. We were just reviewing today our list of prospecting questions that we have. And as soon as you said this one, I thought, oh, I should have that inside my prospecting questions. Why now? Why now? Because when you think about that question that you just said, you get to two things: the root of the problem and the motivation to try to fix it. Why now? That is a brilliant question. I hope every sales leader listening to this conversation right now goes back and says to their sales enablement team, or if you're a small business and you're doing it yourself, add that question into your talk track. Why now, Mr. Customer? What's changed? What's going on? Help me understand. Why now? That's pretty good. That's good. And what a great story to be talking about there. So, geez, I got so excited about the why now question. I forgot everything else that you said.
Well, here's. So I'll jump in and I'll help you co-host this podcast. Okay.
Perfect. Thank you.
I'll jump in and say the point. The point is that if we want to sell successfully in today's marketplace, we've got to realize that we need to shorten the sales cycle. And the only way to shorten the sales cycle is to put ourselves in front of prospects most likely to buy. The power of that is that when the people most likely to buy, it's going to be easy to make them happy. And if we make them happy, they're going to go out and they're going to convert everybody else. Those people that right now as sales professionals, we may be wasting valuable time and resources trying to convert. It's a heavy lift. Make this easier for you and grow like Amazon and Zappos, niche to expand.
It reminds me of a podcast that I recently did with David Merriman Scott on building a fanocracy. That, in fact, is actually one of our 3 core values for 2020 within Vengreso is building a fanocracy. And sometimes you bring on those customers who are dipping their toe in the water. They're not really sure, and they end up tanking and affecting progress, both from customer satisfaction as well as your deliverables. But to your point, if you can be willing to niche, to grow, then you're going to have these raving fans that are all out there, both in our case, it's sales training, facilitated sales training. So then you'll be able to get those raving fans when they go from company to next. In fact, actually funny that right when we were on this podcast, I got a text message from a sales rep who was at another organization who reached out to me and said, I need your help at my husband's organization. So that's exactly what you want to be creating, is those raving fans that as they move from place to place to place, you continue to expand your business. And that's a good spot to be in.
Absolutely.
Well, we talked about some of the things to do differently, and we talked about some of the things to compete to win. Is there any more insights that you want to share on, with this whole, how the buyer has changed the game, and on things that sales reps should do or sales leaders should do to compete to win?
Yeah, one of the biggest, and I would be remiss if I got off this podcast and didn't talk about it, but it is the piece I am passionate the most about. And that is that the sale happens in the follow-up. It always happens in the follow-up. And I see so often the sales professionals who win are the sales professionals who have a strategic follow-up system. I mean, we as sales professionals often don't follow up because we worry that if we follow up too much, we'll be annoying. Or we think if the customer doesn't respond, that they're not interested. Well, if we tap a customer every week and ask them if they're ready to buy, we are annoying. We're so annoying that they aren't going to buy from us even when they want the product, because they control the buying cycle. They're only doing business with you because they like you. They can get the product somewhere else. And then we think the customer isn't interested, and that just isn't true. Here's what happens on a sales call. I have a sales call with you and you are excited about my product. You are ready to buy. And then I call you and you don't respond. I email and you don't respond. And the reason you don't is because here's what happened. As soon as we finished our conversation, you went back in and your largest customer just had a major crisis. Your best employee got an unbelievable offer from another company, and your mother fell and broke her hip. Now, all of a sudden, buying from me is not your top priority. When prospects do not respond, what they are saying to you is not that they don't want to buy. They're saying, you have not shown me enough value for this to make the top 5 of my to-do every day. So follow-up is not about pinging people until they get the sale. It's about nurturing, adding value, and helping a customer make you a priority.
Yeah, you go, girl.
I'm a little passionate about that.
Yeah, absolutely. And we are on the same, that's okay. We have to find a spot to be able to share the stage sometime. Yeah, your messaging is exactly the same exact thing. And I think a lot of people forget about this whole concept of we have what's called our PBC sales methodology, right? What's the P? Personalize all your messaging. What's the V? bring value. And the C is have a call to action. This thing called value that you just talked about sometimes feels like it could be very cliche, right? We say, bring value, bring value, bring value, give value, give value. How do you give value? Let me give you an example of something that I did. So I was speaking at an event. There was an executive that was there, and the executive reached out, had a couple of meetings with me. I ran the sales campaign because of the relationship. And then we went into holiday season, Christmas time, right? So the 2-week break. So I pre-scheduled a message to go out right after the holidays, wrote up the message, had the message go out. And I said, over the holidays, you've been out on break. You're probably thinking about 2 things, because where we were at in the sales process. Like, I understood where we were at, and I understood where we needed to go. And where we needed to go, there was a question that they asked. And so now I'm going to bring content in to address that question. So I said, we're probably thinking about 2 things as we go into the new year on how to solve for this particular problem. Here are 2 pieces of information that I think will be valuable for you. Number 1, here's a quick video. And number 2, here's a ebook. And one is going to be a 2-minute watch, and the other one is going to be a 18-minute long read. Okay? Pick either one or both, whatever one you want. But inside of this, here are the nuggets that it will cover. These 5 areas that are usually concerns for people who are looking to launch this type of digital sales training program. And that was message number 1. Message number 2, that was pre-programmed. And again, this was highly customized. I didn't have this in my outreach or sales loft sequence. It wasn't just like the standard campaign. I thought about where we were at in the buying process. I thought about what the customer said. And then the message number 2 that went out, which was a couple weeks later after that, was hopefully you received this. If you didn't receive that, it's down below, right? The message from down below. And I cover these 2 areas. The next thing I want you thinking about is this. So now I'm leading them through the sales process, and here's a couple pieces of information to address that issue as well. Subsequently, after that message went out, bing, day later, customer says, I'm so glad you pinged me. We need to arrange the call. Here's the call that I want to have. This was very helpful. I read the material. Now the next call I want to include so-and-so, so-and-so, and so-and-so. Do you think these are the right people to include at this step in the game? The answer was yes, and you should probably include such and such and so-and-so, and here's why. And they said, done. Guess what? 2 weeks later, meeting was booked, and we had those people that were engaged on the conversation, right? Now, I was leading them. They are asking for affirmation of who I think should be involved, because now I've built up this small little 5-letter word, trust.
Absolutely. I mean, trust is everything. And when people trust you, they start to think of you as a resource and an advocate. And how we follow up with customers is one of the ways that we build trust. Because if we ping them all the time saying, are you ready to get the sale? You're telling them that you're not only annoying them, but you're telling them this relationship is always going to be more about my goals than it is about your goals. And when you do it in a value-added, nurturing way, you signal them that you understand who they are, what they're doing, what they're about, and you want to continue to do things to help bring value to the relationship. And that builds trust. And when somebody trusts you, boy, you've just opened the door to really build a relationship that is profitable and successful for both of you.
Yeah, absolutely. And then you get into that partnership phase, right?
Exactly.
Where
yes.
now you're collaborating and they're asking insightful questions. And we have a customer that we're doing a pilot program for right now. And we've got another few hundred more sales reps to go if this pilot is successful. And so one of the heads of sales reached out and said, guys, we're getting ready to do this live virtual training. Inside your on-demand training in preparation for the live event, you said we should do you think that we should send this out as teeing this up to the sales reps to say, hey, make sure you do this before you come to the live session? When they sent that, I just wrote, yes, exclamation point. We love you, exclamation point, exclamation point. Because now they're thinking and they're working together and we're like, here's how we would execute that. In our world, we have a whole discussion forum that leaders can actually engage with, and then they send it out to the reps, right? So here's what I want you to do this. And they're like, absolutely. And I said, oh, by the way, if you can't do it, we'll do it for you on your behalf. We'll just log in under your ID. And they're like, please log in right now and do it. And that's where you get that collaboration process with the customer and you continue to build trust over the long term. I love what you said. Spot on, Meridith, my friend. Thank you very much.
Awesome.
We're almost out of time. We've been talking a lot, and this has been a really good conversation, especially around what I'd call the modern buyer, right? And how everything we've been talking about is really around the modern sales leader and the modern sales rep. Like, how do we transform into this modern selling machine and integrate with customers? There is one thing that I don't think we covered, and it was around how the buyer, the consumer, I think you said earlier, is in control.
Yeah.
Touch a little bit on this one. And I've got a story that's going to take us a little bit over, but hopefully all my listeners will listen in. But talk a little bit about how you think that the buyer, in this case, consumer, has gained a lot more control.
When we think about our own lives and our own buying habits, I mean, the truth is we could all sit at home, Google until our heart's content, and we can have everything we need, everything we want, every little thing our heart desires could be delivered right to our door. I mean, most people listening to this podcast are the king or queen of Amazon Prime. I know that the most important relationship in my life is with that man in little brown shorts who drives a big brown truck and brings me presents on a daily basis. So the thing is, that right there changes everything. I mean, that makes us a marketplace like we've never lived in, worked in, or tried to sell in before. Right or wrong, our customers believe our products are a commodity. They are something they can buy anywhere, anytime, from anybody, and they believe they can buy them without us. So it isn't about what we sell. It is about how we sell it. Contrary to popular belief, I think that salespeople are more valuable and important than they have ever been in the sales process, because they are the differentiating factor. They are the thing that brings the emotional intelligence to the sales process. And that is what takes price off the table. That is what creates loyalty. And that is what continues to grow sales. So we have to understand, we've got to stop selling benefits and features, and we've got to create an experience that's on steroids and makes customers believe they can't find it anywhere else like it's going to be with us. And then add value at a level that makes them believe they can't live without us. That's the role of the salesperson today.
I have a situation that happened yesterday, and you can comment on this. It was with an SDR. So here is what happened. I was looking to see what we can do with our Vengreso corporate LinkedIn page and adding on what's called career pages. So this is a LinkedIn product, yeah? And of course, I went to go look at it, and I pinged career pages, and then it says, oh, in order for you to click this button, you have to talk to a salesperson. I was like, oh, here we go. I got to buy something now, right? So I submitted my information, and I was curious to see what the cost was to be able to launch the career pages for Vengreso's company page. I received an email from the sales rep, and it was the generic, I received your inquiry. I'd like to set up a call, and do you have a good time to chat? Otherwise, here's my link, and I'll be happy to meet with you. Now, that was sent to me somewhere around like 9 o'clock in the morning the next day. So it was a good follow-up time period because it was like late at night when I put the request in. I didn't even have a chance to read the message, but an hour later, I got a phone call, and I thought it was somebody else. So I picked up the phone, which I never do because I don't answer non-caller IDs. And it happened to be the SDR from LinkedIn. And the SDR said, hey, I sent you an email. I got your inquiry. It looks like you had some questions. Yes, I did. I have some questions. I want to figure out how much the cost is to add on career pages. Okay, well, tell me a little bit about why you want career pages. Well, I want to be able to have a career page so that we can showcase what life is like at Vengreso for the big recruitment program that we're working on. Oh, so you're working on a recruitment program. Yes. So tell me a little bit how you're going to recruit. Oh, well, okay. Well, we're going to be using social as part of a recruitment. So you don't need any advertising? No. Okay. Well, then I said, no, we don't need any advertising. And then I was starting like, does he know who we are?
Yeah.
Wait, I don't know if he knows who we are. And it was in my mind now, like, I don't think you know who we are. And then he says, well, tell me a little bit about your company and how you're going to go about doing all this recruiting. And then I knew it. He had no clue who Vengreso was. And I said, did you look us up before you even called us? And I felt so bad. He goes, I did not. And I said, aren't you guys the ones that tell everybody that you better look somebody up before you call someone? And like, isn't this your product? And he goes, I'm brand new. I just started. This is my 3rd week on the job. Like, poor guy. I felt so bad for him, right? But the thing about this is that this is not an uncommon occurrence.
Not at
right?
all.
This is day in, day out where I receive messages from sales reps that the experience, you talk about the experience on steroids, so looping it back to what you talked about, how we sell, bring emotional intelligence into the conversation, bring an experience that's on steroids, that makes me a fan. Do you know how many messages as CEO of Vengreso I receive, whether it's phone or email or on LinkedIn, that you have no idea who I am because you didn't take the time to even at least research?
Yeah, two things I want to say about that. I mean, number one, that is a major rookie mistake, right? But then let's assume he had Googled you. If you are asking customers the questions that you should have been able to figure out online, you are just signaling that you are not going to put your all into this. I mean, we as sales reps, we've got to be going to a whole nother level because the stuff that we can research, we're expected to know ahead of time.
And that's to your point around the topic we were just talking about, the consumer is in control. To that end, when I go to Amazon, guess what? It knows every 3 months I buy The Art of Shaving. When I go to Netflix, it knows that I just watched The Flash. And so it's going to serve up Supergirl as an example, as content, right? When I go to Facebook advertisements are serving me up from the website that it just was on Grammarly.com, right? Like, we have come to expect as a consumer that we are going to have personalized content. As a direct result, we buy now in the same way as what I call a professional consumer, a prosumer, right? We're a prosumer. And when we get this interaction from our business to business sales teams that have no clue who we are, immediately you get frustrated, just like you do when you look on Netflix and you're like, why is this serving me up this? Like, where did this come from, right?
Right, they don't know me.
Exactly right. And that causes frustration, premature frustration.
Yeah. That's great. That's great. But what you've got to understand about the buyer at the moment is they have so much choice today that the moment they're frustrated, they will move on.
Exactly right. I felt so bad for the poor guy and I didn't want to buy anything else. And the best part was I closed out the call and I said, listen, all I need to know is what's the cost for career pages? Either you're going to tell me and I'm going to buy it or I'm not. He's like, well, I don't think we sell it. It's just a standalone. It's usually sold in combination. So he says, I'll email you. Turns out, in order for me to get the pricing, I have to speak to an account executive. What did I decide to do? It wasn't that important, right?
Exactly.
I could have bought something, but I'm not looking to speak to an account manager because it's not that important. You cannot be in this era that you're going to hold back all this information until I speak to you. Now, in some cases, like if we're talking about $1 billion ERP system, okay, well, $1 million, different situation, right? But some of these online things, like, come on, we don't control this process. And if you're not going to give it to me, I'm just going to go somewhere else.
Exactly. Anyway. If you're going to make it too hard for me, if you're not easy to do business with, I'm out of there. But that's a whole nother subject.
All right. We went way over. That was fantastic conversation. So I always ask guests this question. If someone wants to get a hold of you, do they connect on LinkedIn? Do they tweet at you? Do they follow you? What's the best way?
Well, I am on all the social media sites, but I do tend to live and be most responsive on LinkedIn. I really believe you build your network, you change your life. So I want to really encourage people to reach out to me. You can always find me at my website, valuespeaker.com, and you'll find my email as well as my cell phone number there too. So give me a shout.
We'll put actually Meridith Elliott Powell's LinkedIn link inside here as well, and her Twitter inside the show notes. But when you reach out, please make sure you send a personalized note and tell her, I heard you on the Modern Selling podcast. So make sure you reach out. And Meridith, one last question for you, and that is your all-time favorite movie. What is it?
My all-time favorite movie. Well, my all-time favorite movie, that's an easy one for me because it is a movie I love and have watched a million times. It is called The Quiet Man with John Wayne. It's a John Wayne movie filmed in Ireland.
All right. That's the first one time we've had The Quiet Man. There you have it. We had The Quiet Man. For all of you listening in right now, thanks so much to Meridith Elliott Powell, who's been on the show. And make sure you stay tuned for this very important message right now. Thanks for listening to the Modern Selling Podcast. Please do me a huge favor and give the Modern Selling Podcast a rating and review on iTunes. I would appreciate it. Also, if you want to easily find our show, just go to themodernsellingpodcast.com. Hey, since you'll be on our site, be sure to check out our Modern Marketing Engine podcast hosted by my co-founder and CMO, Bernie Borges. Thanks for listening in, and until the next episode, good selling.